Good afternoon. My name is Kay Jacobson, and I'm a librarian with the Ramsey County Libraries. It's my pleasure to introduce you today to our session, which is Schools of Psychology, Part 2 by J.B. Andersen. J.B. created the popular History of the President series for OLLI, and he also has served 25 years at the University of Minnesota before he retired. Psychology is one of his loves, and today's session will start shortly, but first, this is brought to you through the co-sponsorship of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute of the University of Minnesota, with the financial support of the Ramsey County Libraries. And we are deeply grateful to both organizations for making this possible. So, without any further ado, I'm going to let JB get his camera open and his audio on, and I'll hand things over to you, JB.
Thank you. Takes a second to get me set up here. Good. Ready to play the slideshow. We're going to start by reviewing what happened the first week. Just take a minute or two. Also, I wanted to let you know next quarter I'll be going back to doing the presidents, and I'm going to be doing Ulysses Grant, spring quarter, and it'll be 7 sessions also. So good. I'm going to review very quickly the defense mechanisms of Sigmund Freud that we covered last week, and today we'll have time to finish them. There's a total of 20 of them. So let's take a look at last week. I did them in alphabetical order, so that will continue. Acting out was the first one. That's an inappropriate action, such as you see here, yelling and screaming at people. Aim inhibition, which is a lowering of goals. You inhibit your personal aims. Altruism was the third that we discussed last week. And that's doing something nice for someone, but you really don't mean it. You feel like it's doing something for you. Avoidance. Can't deal with it. I'm going to avoid it. You don't like a person or an action or something. Catharsis, we talked about last week. That's a cleansing that you do of yourself somehow, usually through venting. You get angry at somebody or you cross your arms like this little boy is. And then compensation. Compensation is you overachieve in one area because you feel pretty worthless about yourself in another area. And finally, the last one that we discussed last week was denial. And that's not accepting reality. It's not happening. So you just simply ignore it. Good. Now, the next item in our group of 20 defense mechanisms by Freud and other people added to them is displacement. Hang on a second. Oops. There, got it working. Displacement, it's negativity that you take out on somebody who isn't responsible for what's happening to you. So the source of the problem is really left alone. You find something else to blame. That's displacement. You place blame somewhere other than where it's due. So, and this is just kind of a funny little thing. Displacement in science and math here, and there's a graphic about it. Also an octave displacement in music, but that's not our topic either. So your boss yells at you and you're at work. Now you go home and you make difficulty with your spouse. That's displacement. You can't talk back to your boss. You can talk back to your spouse. So you find someplace else where you know you're probably not going to be hurt like you would be at work. So your spouse goes into the backyard now. She's been yelled at, and she's going to do some displacement by kicking a squirrel. Sometimes the aggression's taken out on an object. You might pick something up and throw it to the ground and break it. Throw a stuffed toy, such as this child is doing here. So sometimes it's not another person that you displace your feelings onto. It can be an object also. But generally, aggression is redirected to a person who's less threatening. So mom comes home from work and yells at the kid. You've got control over the kid. You're not going to get trouble thrown back at you, probably. So aggression can be, the aggression can be redirected. That's what displacement is. And usually it's displaced onto something that can't hurt you, like an object or another person that you feel is of lower status. Aggression is cyclical. It can move between different people. It's not always the same person. And it can move between different objects, not always the same object, especially if it was glass and you threw it across the room and it broke, and now you can't take it out on that object anymore. Emotional insulation is the next defense mechanism of Freud's that we will talk about. This is personally imposed isolation. How do I avoid a problem? I insulate myself. I don't go around a certain person again, especially if that's where I was harmed, was by that person. It could be a place. Often apathy can set in. Oh, I just don't care. So apathy about events might cause negative feelings. I didn't like that restaurant. I didn't like the waiter in there. I'm not going back again. I just don't like it. Previous hurt leads to a lack of involvement. So you have difficulty someplace in a business with a person at work who works on a different floor than you do. You just avoid that location, that person, that business, etc. You develop indifference toward people, places, experiences. You're detached from new situations at those places where you had difficulty. You are insulating yourself. I don't know where the eggs come from, and I have no idea why I feel a compulsion to hide them. And here's Freud sitting in a chair with his patient, a rabbit, talking about eggs, and feels a compulsion to hide them. Fantasy is the next defense mechanism that we'll discuss. Fantasy is your life is boring, mundane, it's unexciting, nothing's happening, boring. So let's create some fantasies in order to make our individual life look better than it actually is. And that will add excitement to your life. Let's go swing on a star, carry moonbeams home in a jar. Like that song, you end up daydreaming about things that people can't do. such as swinging on a star, for instance. Daydreams, these are a big item in the fantasy defense mechanism. You daydream about winning the lottery. What would I do with all that money? How much is it right now? It's not 20 million. That's not enough. Darn it, anyhow. This is probably when I'd win it, etc. And you talk about doing heroic things or think to yourself about doing heroic things. That's the daydreaming aspect of it. Saving someone from a car accident, a fire, some heroic action. What can I do to get others interested in me? And you daydream about being in a crowd and everybody wants to talk about you or talk with you. And you're the point of interest in the group. Or you think about adventures you might have. Oh, I always wanted to go to New York City, and you daydream about New York City, and you're walking down the street, and here comes a famous person, and you say hello to them. And so celebrating adventures. Fantasy, it's an imagined accomplishment. So again, daydreaming. It can be not seeing yourself as you really are. You might be 40 pounds overweight, but you look in a mirror and you think you look fine, such as in the graphic here. And then wish fulfillment. Fantasies can be, you have hopes. You think about what you'd like, and that can be the daydream element is what am I really going to do here? They can be both positive and negative things. Sometimes you want to do a negative thing around another person to make them look bad. So positive and negative fantasies take part in this defense mechanism. Negatives are, you might make unrealistic expectations. Tell them to other people like you're actually doing it. Or you might make fantasies you've had into realities and you talk to people about things you've done when in reality it's just simply things you've thought about. Consequently, you lose touch with reality and you start leading a life that is quite different from what your life really is like. Positives about fantasy. You can explore things that you want to have happen in real life and then actually make them happen. You can do them there. Or you can resolve real life crises that you have and in a daydream, and then you know how to act. Daydreams, in a positive sense, can be preparing you for how to respond in a variety of situations. So people who daydream, you're ready to meet real life crises, or more ready than people who don't daydream. You're preparing yourself in advance for things that might happen. Here's James Thurber, had very difficult eyesight. He was a cartoonist, created the Walter Mitty stories, started them in 1939. And Walter Mitty, pictured here in the lower left, was a daydreamer. And this is a drawing done by James Thurber for the little article he was writing about something in the life of Walter Mitty. Mitty was meek and mild to other people, but he had a secret life, and he was doing phenomenal things in this secret life of his, even though he was a mild and meek person in real life. This is George Amon Vaillant. He did research on defense mechanisms such as we're talking about here. Fantasy he found was the major component among narcissists, people who love themselves or self-love, uh, and do so to an extreme. So this is the fantasy is a major component among narcissists. They daydream or actually talk like something has happened that hasn't, but it makes them look good. I don't know. You can maybe think of somebody in our society today at a very high level that might be operating like that. Close friendships are lacking in individuals who use fantasy. So they tend to be separated from the crowd. They're separated from other individuals. They're just not paying attention to other people. They are friendless. Next defense mechanism is humor. Humor, I come from a family that, I mean, we were throwing jokes at each other all the time. And, they weren't stories you heard and retell. I mean, we were just very good at making up a humorous response to something. And Freud saw this as uh, real negative in human relations, or that it could be. It's really attacking someone else. Uh, in the case of humor as a defense mechanism, it's how you can cope with tension and stress. It helps relieve tense moments, stressful times, etc. So humor can relieve tension, and that's why it's a defense mechanism. You're getting rid of something by being humorous, not by actually attacking what it is that you're having difficulty with. Uh, Oftentimes, humor is a relief to other people, and for you, burdens are released that you might be having. So, humorous situations uh, can resolve, uh, even though not in reality, it's not a resolution, but for a moment, it resolves difficulties. It's a great coping mechanism for most people because jokes are funny. People get to laugh. You start thinking about something different. Uh, Often, humor, of course, it's always somebody else has to be in the room with you. So sometimes humor can be negative. Next defense mechanism is identification. Freud identified identification in many ways. We're going to look at three different ways that Freud talked about identification: primary, narcissistic, and partial. So you're identifying with something, okay? Primary, narcissistic, partial. First is primary. You attach yourself to another person. Doesn't have to be a person, it can be an object. Uh, it might be movie stars. I mean, I've had friends, back decades ago, there were lots of magazines that would come out that had information in them about movie stars, sometimes exclusively. The whole magazine was about movie stars. And this gives you an attachment to some famous person and helps you identify with something. Mansions are another thing. What would I do if I was living in a bigger house? What could I have that would be different? How many rooms would there be? So on and so forth. But at any rate, the graphic here shows you uh, identifying with your mother. She's bigger. She knows what to do. She can get you stuff, etc. Or you might have a blanket. We frequently see children getting attached to a blanket and sometimes a teddy bear, an object of some sort, can cause relief or give you feelings of greater security because you've got this friend now that doesn't talk back to you, isn't trying to raise you, telling you what's right and wrong all the time. Second is narcissism or a narcissistic personality. This means self-love, tremendous amount of self-love for yourself. You're constantly telling people how great you are. And happens usually starts at a young age. And you're constantly defending yourself. You're feeling like I've got to make up for this inferiority I'm feeling, so I'm going to tell stories that are going to make me look good. They may be about me, or they may just simply be something that people will appreciate in me. So again, happens at a young age, so forth. Partial is the third uh, uh, item in identification. If you're jealous of another person, you don't like the qualities they have, which are better than yours. That's your perception. Or they have successes that you wish you had. These people are then seen as rivals. How dare them be better than me? And that's a partial identification crisis. Identification generally is attachment to another person, such as the graphic of the little boy hugging his mother. Anything that gets in the way of an attachment to another person is critical in establishing an identification. Intellectualization. Got a lot of stress. You want to find a reason to avoid it. So you're thinking, okay, what can I do? How can I avoid this? What's going to happen next here? And you intellectualize it. It's a result of three factors, maybe. One, two, three, and then you list them. So you make up reasons about how to avoid this stress. You're thinking about it. So thinking is used to avoid feelings. We're going to look at three items here. Complex rational terms are sought to define the situation. If I can make my language look better, like my vocabulary is immense, that's going to make me look better. So jargon can become important, and you have all sorts of different terms for it. Communication, legalese. I was looking up something in the dictionary the other day. Terminology that you've got. So in order to intellectualize your shortcomings, you find these rational terms that define situations you cast yourself into. Let's say you've been fired from a job. Okay, how can I intellectualize this? Well, it wasn't me. It was a corporate decision, a business decision, had to be done, necessary for the company, had nothing to do with me. It's just they needed to cut back, and my department, the whole department got cut, wasn't me. And then number three, there's a negative side, and that's where you find a very negative reason, cold, dark reason to explain an event that points very negatively to you. You intellectualize it, find something rational to excuse it. Introjection is the next item that we will discuss on defense mechanisms. You accept statements from people you like. You introject it into yourself. Usually it's a person in a position of authority. When you're a child, it's a parent. When you're vocationally involved, it might be a friend from work. When you're dating or married, it might be your love partner. So you accept statements from these people. You're really identifying with them. A lot of people compare introjection to identification. You're finding a place where you're going to like what's going on or being said about you, etc. When you're a youngster, you start learning things and you take them into yourself. Your dad said, you start crying and you're 10 years old and your dad says, hey, boys don't cry. You know, that's not something men do either. So now's the time to stop. You are accepting something, introjecting it. Passive aggressive behavior is a defense mechanism. You're protecting yourself. And this is passive aggressive is generally an indirect behavior. Somebody might say something to you and you don't like it, but you do nothing about it, but you personally reject it. And it might be a request to do something and you never do it. You just, I'm not going to do that with this person. So you're not doing anything directly to hurt them. What you're doing is passively rejecting a request that they have. Now, that's really aggression. It's just passive aggression. It's not grabbing them by the shoulders and shaking them. It's not objective. It's passive. Not doing something that is requested. Generally, we refer to this with the word procrastination. Boy, that guy sure doesn't get anything done. Well, he didn't like what you asked him to do. He's not doing a request that you've made of him. So it's seen as a negative thing. And it's often called stubbornness. He's stubborn. He won't move. He won't do this. He won't do that, etc. Stubbornness, crossing your arms, keeping your mouth closed, lips tight, eyebrows down. It shows your stubbornness. If a person looks like this when they're looking at you, not just a child, you might cross your legs, cross your arms, and pull your eyebrows down, and that's a sign. You can read that body language. You can tell this person doesn't like what I just said. Passive aggressive behavior. Frequently, it's accomplished by avoiding the request of another person, as we've already talked about, or directly saying no. You might say, no, that's a whole lot less passive than just forgetting about doing something. Generally, it's a silent evasion of some problem that you perceive in another person or that they're asking you to do and you don't want to do. They're always telling me what to do. Passive aggressive. Passive aggressive people avoid other people. And they usually have a reason for not doing something. Well, that was an unreasonable request. How can a person do that? Or they might say, that's women's work. It's not men's work. And I'm a man and they shouldn't have been asking me about that. Or you respond with sarcasm. Sarcasm frequently can be seen as humor. So you respond with something like, oh, yeah, nice job. And of course, what you mean is, that's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen anybody do. Passive aggressive person, pictured here smiling, but doesn't mean it. Got to have a trick to smile. At the base, you're hiding anger inside of you. And it's about a request from another person. And no, I'm not going to do that, but I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to strike out at you. I'm going to remain passive. It's inside me. It's not coming out. Projection. Uh, Negative feelings that you have and you place them on another person. You're projecting a negative feeling, something that you have come up with, and you're saying, that person's got this problem. See, you're projecting your problem onto someone else as a defense mechanism. There's a trait you don't like about yourself. You assign it to somebody else. How can they be doing that kind of stuff? How they're at fault for this, when in reality, it's something you're rejecting or hoping to reject about yourself by placing it into the lap of another person. A cheating spouse. They suspect that their partner is a cheater also. How I behave is how everyone behaves. I see this as a major Donald Trump situation. I didn't lose the election of 2020. Well, he cheats on people. He cheats in elections. He called the attorney general of a state, just find me 11,701 more votes in your state, please. He's assuming, projecting that everyone behaves this way. So if I cheat, you cheat. Everybody does that same sort of thing. There's 4 steps you can take if you're being projected onto. Number 1, recognize the behavior as projection. I've seen that person do that several times. And now they're accusing me of doing it. Use of the word you is a big hint. You something. Have you gained weight? Somebody will ask you that. The reality is they're the ones that have gained weight. Item 2, see where the other person is coming from. They're attempting to be rid of a concern that they have, and they're placing it on me. That's projection. Tells you something about the other person. Somebody starts placing something on you, you go, that seems to be a problem this person has. If you cast off the projection, it's not a problem for you. You're letting go of it. So cast off like a boat, or it's a knitting term, but you cast off the projection. Casting off is projection. Item 4, accept that it's not who you are. I am not that kind of a person. I'm being influenced here. It's not me. So you project it onto someone else, and that's how you get to deny that it's really you. It's you that has the problem. Not my concern, it's your problem. It's not my problem. I'm being influenced by other people. That's why you're seeing that in me. Next defense mechanism, reaction formation. You're reacting to stuff. You have an unacceptable feeling. You have an unacceptable desire. Oftentimes, these are illegal items. They're not just socially questionable items. Oftentimes, it's something that could get you into some real trouble. And you try to convince yourself that you don't have these socially unacceptable feelings. It's a reaction formation. You're reacting to something you're feeling and saying, that can't be me. Shakespeare play Hamlet. The lady doth protest too much is one of the quotes. And this is somebody who is protesting too much and then blaming it on someone else. The lady doth protest too much. You're actually attempting to hide your own feelings or to hide the feelings of the person that you are speaking with. Exaggerated expressions signify a reaction formation, and here are all sorts of possible emotions that we can see in other people. These are reactions to something they are feeling or something you just said. So reaction formation, how we react to others about ourselves or about the other person with an unwanted child may talk about how terrible a thing that would be for somebody to have a child and they don't want that child. Or it's taking an opposite stance. I'm fat, but I think I'm thin. Or just hiding the true feelings that you have about yourself. Reaction formation. Reaction formation was first described by Anna Freud, who followed in her father's footsteps and became a psychoanalyst herself. So this is one that she added to his list. He had a dozen originally. Today, there are literally hundreds of defense mechanisms. We're looking at 20 in this lecture. Rationalization. This is unacceptable behavior, and we explain it in a logical, rational manner. Rationalization. We find a good reason for it not being us. Commonly called as making excuses for himself. Yeah, that's all we hear from that guy is, you know, he didn't mean it, or he didn't do it, or somebody else said it about him. She turned me down for a date, but I really wasn't interested in dating her anyway. So you find rationalization, a reason. Well, I wasn't interested anyway. I did poorly on the test, but did you read the questions on that test? Oh, you couldn't figure out what they actually meant. They're so poorly written. They got stuff on the end that should be at the beginning of the question, and the professor doesn't know what he's doing. Rationalization protects our self-esteem, our concept of ourself. And we rationalize, we give good reason, we have good reasons, and that protects our self-esteem concept we have of ourself. Achievements are attributed to the self, failures to someone else. So look what I did, and that's great, but deny anything that looks bad. So, next defense mechanism is regression. This is going back, regressing. Go back to an earlier stage of development. I'm an adult now, but boy, when I was a kid. So this is retreating, an earlier time when you felt safe. So get me out of this stage that I'm in. I'm going back to a different stage. Or get me out of this experience that I'm in. I can remember when I used to this and such. Yeah, okay, do that again. You're regressing. Conflicts and dangers arise. You go back to a younger age. That's what regress means. Can't bend over anymore? Well, you think about when you were a dancer and had lots of good movement and able to move properly and well and nicely and so on. A newlywed returns to his parents' home regularly. I want to, let's see, things were going okay here. This is where I grew up. It was nice. I got presents and stuff. So you can regress back to other relationships that you've had rather than ones that you're involved with now. Might be business, might be spouse, etc. An older child is stressed quite a bit, and that older child continues to suck their thumb as they did when they were an infant, and that relieves stress or helps them relieve stress. It feels good. I'm regressing back to the thumb sucking stage. Regression, that's another development of Anna Freud. Repression. Be rid of something that's unpleasant. It can be an action that you took. It can be thoughts that you have, stuff you're doing to yourself, not to other people. And you push it into the unconscious mind. You repress it. Forget about it. I got to be rid of this anxiety. Okay, we're going to forget it. Older person was maybe abused as a child. And what you do, memories of it, you try to forget them. You form new relationships. Might be difficult to do that, but you're getting away from something. You're pushing it back. You're regressing it. Overly regressed people frequently have physical reactions to this, such as an increased heart rate, which is due to the stress that they feel by not being able to repress these feelings that they're having. Sublimation or sublimation. It's not sublimation. There's no end in there. It's sublimation. You have ideas and impulses that are not acceptable. They're not socially acceptable, but you're thinking them as an individual, and why am I thinking these things? So then you super react to other people by displaying socially acceptable behaviors, even though you're regularly thinking about impulses, or you might call them instincts, or things that you think are not acceptable. Sublimation. The most common acceptable behavior used is physical activity. So in order to get rid of these negative feelings, I went running this morning. Talk about something good that you did. I have a hobby, and I play checkers on a machine. So it's me against the machine. And it makes me have to try to think a little bit and so on. And so these are concrete, acceptable notions, hobbies, uh, things you do. Sublimation, it it makes us deflect away from the negative things that we're thinking, look in a different direction. The redirection of these impulses is considered appropriate and mature. It looks great to other people. It makes you feel better about yourself. Suppression is next. You deliberately forget about things that cause anxiety or cause stress. Push it underground. Forget about it. Suppress it. Cover it up. Bottle it up. Forget about it. However, these feelings tend to come to the fore again. You begin thinking about them. The feelings return and they end up haunting you, and you've got to start the process over again. This is the most common defense mechanism suffered by people. Long-term, often daily reactions, trying to suppress feelings that you've had about other people, about things you've done, about things you believe, etc. How do I suppress these things? The number one defense mechanism across the human population. Most common things that we suppress are grief, a death of someone close to us. Try not to think about it. We think about them in a different way, not as a dead person, but things we did with them. Another common suppression, frustrations that we have. I cannot put a puzzle together. I hate it when I see these puzzles sitting out in people's homes or looking someplace. You go into a restaurant and they got a table with a puzzle on it and you can sit down and work it. And I am no good at it, and you get frustrated as a result, or you get angry as a result. So grief, frustration about accomplishments, anger about things you've observed or seen in other people, these are the most common things that we try to suppress. Grief, frustration, and anger. And we'll often be talking to somebody, and rather than having an outburst response to them, we suppress that. We don't tell them, hey, I don't like what you just said. The worst consequence of suppression is high blood pressure, and there are pills for that. Common phrases describing suppressions. You're bottling it up. You're sweeping it under the carpet, as in the graphic here. Suppression. We're going to talk about 5 different things that are called suppression, or how it's used, etc. It's most common among married couples. You suppress things you're thinking, and why does she walk around the house without any shoes on? Or whatever it might be, or gee, I hate those kinds of shirts, those kinds of tops. So kind of thing you might think about a person, but you will not tell them. And in this case, number one, it's most common among married couples. Used by men and women equally. There's no gender difference in the use of suppression. Men do it, women do it. lots. In Western culture, it suppresses negativity. Negative things is what we're trying to suppress. Other cultures suppress positive and negative emotions. But here in the West, we tend to suppress only the negative ones. We like to show off and remember the positive suppressions. Number 4 of 5. It's learned behavior from childhood, how to suppress things. We learn at a very young age to just forget about it. Don't do it. I never could get this thing, that whatever this thing is here, I could never get these things working right. The heck with it. I'm never buying my kid one of them, etc. And 5, when suppression becomes chronic, widespread in a person, it increases stress. And of course, there's a pill for that, as I said. It also lowers satisfaction in relationships that you have with other people, not just people you know well, but developing new relationships even. So it lowers relationship satisfaction when you're suppressing stuff, and can lead to some serious health issues. And lots of stress can often lead to heart problems, etc. Undoing is the next defense mechanism. You take an action and then guilt sets in. Why did I do that? Negative feelings start to enter. You got a chain around yourself and you're dragging a big heavy ball because of the guilt that's been created. How do I undo that? Negative feelings about somebody else, so every time you meet with them, because it's the neighbor next door, you act nice around them. That's you're undoing your real feelings and showing something else. Cancel out previous negative feelings. Alter your past. Be somebody different. Do what's acceptable, not what you're feeling. And that's the end of defense mechanisms. We got a lot more Freud to cover here, but finally, no more defense mechanisms. The next thing that we're going to talk about are drives. This is a concept of Sigmund Freud's. We have drives. Well, what is a drive? First, introduction. 250 slides so far on Freud. Finally, we get to sex. This tends to be the one thing people know about Freud is his sexual theories. Sex, yep, one thing we know about Freud. So drives, let's define them. They're not instincts. It's a drive. It's something that we have created within ourselves. We're not born with it. Instincts are inborn, they're biological. Drives are cultural, and they're psychological. A drive is a motivation. And here we've got major components of motivation is activation. You might read about I'm going to do that. And then persistence. You do it, you actually start doing it. And then intensity. You do a lot of it. In this case, it's exercise. So a drive is a motivation to do something that is not instinctual. Let's take a look at the types of drives. There's 2 types. There's a life drive, according to Freud, and there's a death drive. We've all heard of sex drive, but these are the two big drives that Freud describes. The life drive, known as the libido or eros. And this is where we find the sex drive, is in the life drive. Freud called it the pleasure principle. Eros, of course, is the Greek god. Erotic is short term for it. It's also the name of the Greek god of love. So life drive is about relationships, sex in particular, and again, the pleasure principle. A lot of ways to find pleasure other than sex, however, in the Freudian world. At stake, survival of the species. When it's a sex drive that we're talking about reproduction. But at the same time, this is causing overpopulation. Frequently, an argument frequently made to people who say, no abortions. No, you can't kill a person. Well, if there's no abortions, the population will increase dramatically. What you really believe in is the extinction of our species. So, what are we really talking about here? Life drive. Many now argue reproduction is the central issue in the extinction of our species, overpopulation. But it's about more than sex. A life drive. We love foods. Certain foods we like, certain foods we don't like. Same with drink. Same with pain. How do I avoid pain? I'm just, it hurts me to bend over, and I have a very expensive pool cue that I bought 40 years ago, and it's just sitting in the back of my car, and I never use it, and I just can't bend over like that anymore. It hurts. So what are the basic needs? Food, drink, and avoid pain. Love and cooperation are part of the life drive. They are the main driving forces. It's not just about physical love. It's about caring for others and about being concerned about others. Two more elements of the life drive: feeling comfortable, being happy. How do you make yourself accepting of yourself? How do you make yourself feel comfortable? Used to be a lot of different ways for me. Now it's about getting home and sitting in the recliner and being happy. What can you do that makes you happy? Lately, the last 5 years, I started doing crossword puzzles on my computer, and that's nice. And I watch a lot more movies on TV and mysteries I watch. And it's just makes me more comfortable. I always know when I'm watching a mystery, whoever gets arrested isn't the person that did it. And again, this is known as the pleasure principle. Being happy, feeling comfortable, reproducing the species, sex, love conditions, both physical and emotional, communal. Drives. Types: the death drive, also known as the death wish. It's about the end of life. How do we react to the reality of death while we're living? That's a question. How do we react to the reality of death while living? Generally, it's by aggression. Verbal attacks on other people, physical attacks on other people, by being angry or by withdrawing, not engaging with other people. Freud says these are all reactions to the fact that we will die someday. We take it out on others. We do physical things. We show anger, or we withdraw from others. Some societies express this through gun culture, a war culture. I'm going to protect myself. What you're really worried about is death. And so we load up on guns and we're protecting ourselves, at least during our lifetime, from death. That will eventually come naturally. The United States and foreign wars, this death drive. Since 1776, 93% of the time, that's 232 years, we've been shooting at somebody else, not individually. As a nation, we've been at war or invading and calming some other place. We've had 400 total interventions in 250 years, 200 of them since 1945. That's just 80 years ago. So the United States has almost always been involved in military actions in other countries. Lots of Freud patients were World War I soldiers. He went into practice after World War I. That's a near-death experience. World wars, any war is a near-death experience. But Freud had lots of patients who came out of World War I, regularly having dreams of the warfare that they went through, regularly talking with others about war. As soon as they find out you're a veteran, they'll talk to you about it. But their children say, he never talked about World War I, or he never talked about World War II. I've had relatives involved in this sort of thing, and their children say, he never talked about World War II. Well, he talked to me about it, and I wrote it down. Here's 10 pages on it, literally. Tons of stories that the children were never told. Death drive. World War I soldiers were attempting to deal with death. It became close. It became a near reality when you're in a situation like warfare, especially a world war. From the 1800s to about 1960, we were focused primarily on the sex drive. Freud said this becomes cyclical, sex drive or death drive, life drive, death drive. And there are extended periods where we concentrate on the life drive. There are constant periods on the sex drive, constant periods on the death drive. In the 1960s, universities began having classes on death. What's death about? How do you prepare for it? What do you do when someone close to you dies? Here is a group at Columbia University where the first class of this type was offered. Started with 30 students. The second year, it had 300 students at Columbia University taking a course on death. People started getting super interested in it. They'd been interested in the sex drive for 150 years in our culture, or on the life drive. Now the death drive comes to the fore. There were books written. I read this book on the left, American Way of Death by Jessica Mitford, back when I was a student in the 60s. Here's another one from long ago, Handbook of Death and Dying by Clifford Bryant. So we started looking in a different direction. It appears the true drives are cyclical. There are periods of time when we're thinking about life drive, long periods of time, then long periods of time when we think more about the death drive. Death drive has been more common throughout history because death was far more frequent early on, before the 20th century, with the development of medicine. And so half of all people who were born died by the age of 10. You're seeing a lot of death. This was true up and into the late 1800s, early 1900s. Of the 5 remaining of 10 people left alive after the age of 10, 4 more were dead by the age of 40. You live to be 40 years old, 90% of all the people born in the same year as you are dead. Death was common. The death of children was common. Today, a child dying is a great tragedy. It was a common tragedy. More 100 years ago and longer. So life and death drives. And we go through periods where we think about death more frequently than we think about life. And then that changes more frequently. We think about life. Psychosexual development. This is a lengthy section, but let's get started with it. It's 39 slides. We got about 7 or 8 minutes here before we start looking at questions. So, introduction first. Psychological development occurs in childhood. This is Freud. Who you are, what your problems are, all happens between the ages of 1 and 15 or whatever, during childhood. A commonly accepted norm today is psychological development occurs in childhood. Major theme, Freudian psychology. The first 5 years, according to Freud, are the most important in in personality development. This is another change due to Freud. Back in the 1800s, we pretty much thought people were always aware of everything that they did, and our criminal justice system was based on it. You knew you wanted to kill this person. You thought about it in advance. That's just everything you are, everything you know about yourself. It's everything. Then along came the unconscious mind. It's like an iceberg. Here's the unconscious mind down here. Here's the preconscious mind. You can dig into it occasionally. Here's the conscious mind, the things we're aware of. That's only 1/8. The rest of it is stuff we don't generally bring to the surface. So there was a huge change after Freudian psychology got popularized into you're not aware of everything about yourself. You're aware of almost none of it. Psychosexual stages of development. Introduction. Freud had 5 psychosexual stages. There's the oral stage, that's up to age 1. It's oral because that's how you get to eat. And somebody's feeding you all the time. So everything we assume that a child is thinking about, that's up to age 1. is where's the food going to come from next? I cry when I'm hungry. Second psychosexual stage is anal. That's 1 to 3 years old. Um, during this period of time that you generally learn to use a toilet, or you begin to recognize that there's something in your diaper. Then there's the phallic phase, and this is 3 to 6 years of age. And it deals with concerns you're having about yourself, your body, etc. Then latency, that's starting to move toward physical relationships, a realization of them. And you enter puberty during this period. And so you can begin to ejaculate, or you begin to have, uh, women begin to uh, reach a sexually active and prominent stage where they can have children. Genital is the fifth stage, and that's puberty and into adulthood. Some people move smoothly through these stages into adulthood. They become fully functioning people as they move through these stages. Some people, however, stop at a stage. They get fixated at a stage. They don't move on. This becomes a very cloudy situation for them. All of a sudden, they never achieve adulthood. Two reasons why the movement stops. The needs for the next stage that you're moving into never get met. Or stress and anxiety are the result, and that stops it. I don't want to get into this. I don't know what's going on here. Second item, you're overly gratified at a certain stage. You don't want to leave it. So the 5 stages, let's take a closer look. I think, yeah. Sorry, I hit a wrong button there. Okay, here we go. The 5 stages. Whoops, sorry. Okay, number 1, stress and anxiety can be the result. 2 reasons. Okay, 1 and 2. We did those. I'm getting there. The 5 stages. Introduction. Here's the 5 stages again. Oral stage. It's centered around the mouth. That's how you get fed as a child up to the age of 1, roughly. It's a source of food. In adults, you get a fixation at that stage, can be exhibited through nail biting or through smoking. Anything that might have something to do with the mouth. Freud smoked cigars. He was asked about that. Are you fixated at the oral stage? He stated, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Anal stage. 1 to 3 years old, you start to control your bowel movements. You realize what's going on in your body and that you can shape it. It gives you a sense of self-control. Potty training's critical, and you want it to be a positive outcome with this potty training. Relationship with authority is established. It's developed very strongly during this period because it's older people showing you how it all works. A controlling parent telling you where and when leads to an anal retentive person. anal retentive. I don't want to have to go to the bathroom. That was a bad learning experience. Um, I'm wondering how many questions we have. Next week, I could go back and restart this section, but is there anything in our,
So far, we're at two.
we are, well, you want to start them?
We can.
Okay, let me
Uh,
quit this. And now, let's see. Okay, you
I've
can
got
see
you, JB.
we need to go to full screen.
Yep, Avery's working on that.
Yeah, I'm working on it. No worries.
So,
It'll,
okay. I'll talk a little while we're here we
there
go.
we go. Thanks.
So, there is a question. We're going back to the defense mechanisms, and someone's wondering, how does isolation differ from avoidance?
Hmm. Isolation, I would guess, is more severe. Avoidance is simply you're still out in the crowd. You're avoiding people. You don't talk to them. He's a really quiet guy. Isolation is where you really lock yourself up and keep yourself away from others. My wife wrote about these kinds of issues, especially for senior citizens, like isolation. For instance, she wrote about that. And what was interesting about it is I started looking for a senior place that we might move to a decade ago, and we've never done anything about it. But one of the things that my wife wrote about was how in senior uh, living areas, tremendous amount of people just shut their door and never make contact with other people. Well, I would go looking at these senior residences and I'd walk the hallways. It was amazingly quiet in most hallways. There'd be some people down in an area where there were meeting rooms, gathering places, games to play, stuff like that. But it was a lot of people, but it was a small percentage of the entire facility. So isolation is locking yourself up. Uh, and you can still move around among people
Mhm.
and end up practicing isolation. So I think that's the difference.
So, okay, so this is, can a person change their way to engage life on their own? Or is it possible to even do this, or could it only take place by finding a professional?
Uh, there are
Think
lots of
just-
books you can buy about self-help. I'm sure the Ramsey County Library has tons of self-help books. Yeah. And some of them are about a variety of things like finding a hobby. Some of them are more psychological in nature. Uh,
Mhm.
so, yes, you can help yourself. Also, there are groups of people, they're informal. Nobody's a professional. You sit and talk about it. Sometimes you get together with people, you talk about anything, it's just a gathering, but the topic becomes finding yourself or or why don't we get together more often, etc. Um, so yeah, then of course there is professional help. Why are you isolating yourself? Let's talk about that. And I mean, if you just can't get it done on your own, or you feel you don't want to, then call somebody and you get to pay them $150 an hour. But
Yeah.
uh, a good start is read a book about it, find a group about it, and it becomes very revealing. And one of the questions that often gets asked professionally, but also in just a group of people trying to come out of their isolation, kind of, is tell us how you see other people. What's going on in this group? What, and what do you do when you enter a room and there's other people in it? Um, do you feel threatened when somebody asks you something in a situation where you're not gathering? You can be at the library, walk into the library, sit at a table, and somebody says something to you. Uh, not a not a common thing, and you can feel some sort of difficulty about it. So, finding a group and trusting the group, and
Mhm.
yes, those are ways to start kind of a hierarchy of things to do. And it's become far more common among seniors. And it's especially interesting in senior residences. They'll frequently have a nurse that comes in on a weekly basis, and not to, she or he can talk to you about physical aspects, but frequently these nurses that come into a senior residence are interested in finding out about how are you feeling? Who's the last person you talked to here? When was that? Have you ever gone to any of the events that they have here? Questions like that. And those are questions, if you're in midlife and your parents are retired, there's questions you can ask them. How are things going? And what are your needs? And so on. So, yes, get started. Ask yourself some questions, but you need to take it a step further.
Yeah. I can tell you I've run into patrons who read a self-help book and then read like 5 to 10 more and never get beyond the reading the self-help books. You have to sometimes limit yourself to one and make an attempt to move out there because you can sometimes just then get yourself not attempting anything.
Well, and if you want to put together a group, you can say, okay, we're all going to meet at the library. They have rooms there that are
Hmm.
private, and we can arrange to have it for an hour or 2 hours. And number one, it gets us out of the situation we're currently in. We have to go someplace else, and it's a more of a neutral place. And so it's doubly helpful in a sense.
Just like going to your weekly meeting, JB, that you have.
Yeah.
So. Okay, are there defense mechanisms that have not survived in today's therapy settings? And like ones that Freud described that are no longer really accepted as a defense mechanism?
The 12 that Freud came up with are still all very much active.
Okay.
Like I said, there's hundreds of them. Yes. Many are never used. Many are new to people who are experts in this. You say, what about this? I mean, who can know several hundred of these defense mechanisms that are used? So, uh, as to items that have gone out of use or people not using them, I have no idea about that. But yeah, uh, you can buy a book or get a book on defense mechanisms and look through there. And it's amazing all the different ways that we use to protect ourselves.
Mhm.
That's really what this is about. Who am I alone? Who am I in the group? Who am I among strangers? And how do I protect that? And the fact is, as I mentioned today, most of us know nothing about a whole lot of that stuff. And that's a big change in the last 150 years. Is awareness, and it's not 100%. That's a much smaller number of
Yeah.
personal awareness.
Sometimes being aware of people around you in your family unit or things like that that you're close to, being aware of what their defense mechanisms are so that you can identify them and maybe get past those too, which is
Yeah.
my son is a nervous laughter kind of guy when he is feeling like he got in trouble or something. So, okay. Are defense mechanisms seen as inherently negative, or would some be seen as a healthy coping mechanism today?
It's when they become troublesome.
Okay.
Any of them can be good, I, but many aren't. But it's when you really, when it gets in the way of your cooperation, and when it gets in the way of your looking outward, uh, then you've got to do something. Just say, okay, I'm aware of this. Where can I go to start talking to people about it? Uh, there are groups that are social in nature, such as church groups, such as environmentalist groups. I mean, there are groups that have speakers on a monthly basis. You go in there and you don't know anybody, but everybody's willing to talk to you. You go into a restaurant, it's just the opposite. Find the thing that,
Yeah,
that
I would guess defense mechanisms make me think of where you settle in and you're not taking action. You're just, whereas a coping mechanism or something like that is where you are taking action. And that's like being on the offensive, if you want to put it that way. So, and we are like 2 minutes out here from when we're going to be done. And I just would like to say, maybe we need to be mindful of coping mechanisms, doing something for ourselves during the number of weeks that we've been having here in Minnesota. Take time to do some positive things for yourself, whether that be just had an email that a woman came into the library. We'd helped her find some origami books and she made peace cranes and she brought us some. And it was something that was really helping her to cope and wanting to spread peace and joy. And so,
I have said that I'm not going to go out. This is too dangerous. I was heavily involved in the civil rights movement in the 60s, in the
mm,
anti-Vietnam War movement in the 60s. I don't know why I haven't gone to a demonstration now, but I'm far more afraid than I used to be.
yeah.
And that said, guess what I do every day? I go someplace. I go to a restaurant, I go to the library, I go and buy groceries. I don't think I've had a day in the last 2 or 3 weeks where I started by saying isolate, and I haven't.
So, okay. Well, it is now 2 o'clock, and I want to thank you, JB, for today's session, and thank all of you for joining us. I just want to remind everyone this has been recorded. Hopefully, we'll get these up soon, and reminder to everyone to be safe, take care, check in on each other, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.